Welcome. I'm Meredith, and this is a VR to Kelly of Truth and Story for Irreplaceable decks. And I should say, I first saw this on Lisa Papez's channel, and I will link both videos in the description. So, if you're not familiar with this, this isn't about decks that are out of print or hard to get. These are about decks that fill a certain need or they just provide something that no other deck can. So let's get right in. As I have a few. Now, this isn't about favorites. It's not about most used decks. So bear that in mind. Now this one is one of my favorites, but this is the Madhouse Tarot. Now this deck, absolutely does what no other deck can. The imagery is just absolutely incredible, and it has a way of really reaching in, like, to the depths of your soul. It's that kind of deck. It's great for shadow work, but it's great for any kind of work. And it touches parts of me that other decks don't. I guess that's the easiest way to put it. And I find this not only to be incredibly beautiful and superb quality, but it's a very, very powerful deck for me. And I don't have any other deck. I've never heard of any other deck that might do this the same way or as well. It's just an incredibly unique deck, and it's absolutely irreplaceable. So, and I absolutely love it. So next, this. Now, strictly speaking, I do have two copies of this. I have the mini, and this is the full size. This is Cosma Visions. So this deck kind of takes tarot and puts it on its head. So it goes about it in a very different way, beginning from death. It's very beautiful, and it's very powerful, and it does something that no other decks can, simply because of the approach. And I mean, you could use this as a standard oracle if you wanted, but it's so much more than that. And if you use it the way it's intended, it's just very powerful. And again, it goes about things. I mean, I guess in theory you could use another deck to try to get the same result, but I think it would be clumsy, and it would take longer, and it wouldn't be as effective. So this is a deck that, for me, is about transformations. It's about becoming, and it's just very, very special. And so there were some other cards in there, but it's a very special deck, and no other deck is going to do it the way it does. So next, this is the Devas of Creation. So this deck is, you know, I'm an intuitive reader, and this deck allows me more freedom, and it while being incredibly evocative. So I mean, I could pull this card 10 times and get 10 completely different reads, and they'll all be accurate. You know, there's so much. I mean, yeah, I could use the same card every single day for a month and not really need to move further. It's just absolutely incredible. And there are other decks that, you know, are more for intuitive reading and kind of give you some leeway, but none like this. I mean, I have soul cards, and they work along the same lines, but not as completely, and to me they're just more limited. This is just wide open, and I use this deck for meditation. I use it for readings, and it's just absolutely incredible. And every time, and I've had this deck for years, and every time I use it, it's like looking at the cards for the first time. And there's no other deck that can do this. So, Irreplaceable. And next, so this is my poor battered Thoth deck. So this is my first deck, and for that reason alone it would probably be Irreplaceable, but that's not even why it's here. This deck, I guess it's why this specific, I mean, there are a bunch of Thoth decks, right? There's different versions, and you know, but this deck and I are very bonded, and this is a deck, if I need clarity and I can't find it anywhere else, I can always find it here. It's very easy and very comfortable to read with. To me, this is a very cerebral deck, and it's great for kind of sorting through questions that don't deal with the emotions. That's where it shines for me, anyway. But it's, yeah, clarity, I think, is the biggest. Clarity for some kind of knowledge that's needed. That's how this deck most shines for me, and there's no other deck that really touches it. Now, I guess, in theory, I could get another Thoth deck and feel at least similar. But again, I mean, I've had this deck since the 80s, and it's the only one, as far as I'm concerned, for that. Now, saying that, this deck, so this is the Asherah Tarot. This is a fairly new edition, but this deck makes my soul sing. it's kind of like the other side of the coin to Crowley's Thoth. This, to me, is all emotion, and it's a clarity of emotion that I get with this, and there's a joy that comes from using this deck. It's like, it's like meeting your soulmate, and there's no other deck that creates that feeling for me. And I mean, from the first moment, it just reads so perfectly, so beautifully. And, yeah, this is absolutely irreplaceable. And I am so completely in love with this deck. I can't even tell you. So yeah, and in fact, I do have the tiny version too, which is what I started with. But then I got the larger size because I just wanted more of it. So it's irreplaceable. So the next deck is Wisdom of the Sacred Bee Oracle. Now, I actually just recorded a video. I don't think I posted it yet. Showing my Oracle decks, and I think it was like part 8, maybe part 7. But I talked about this deck and how special it is to me, and I hate to repeat myself, but this deck came to me at a time when I needed it most, and it gave me exactly what I most needed. I'm not even gonna get into it here. I already got into it in another video, but for that reason alone, and oh man, forget the fact that it's incredibly gorgeous, fabulous, amazing quality, and a fabulous reader, fabulous keywords. This is an emotional bond that makes it absolutely irreplaceable, and I'm absolutely in love with this deck, and I'm very, very grateful to have it. So and it just had a very powerful effect on me and my life, really. So yeah, absolutely irreplaceable. Next deck, this is the Gita Deck. This one's a bit different. So it's I mean, sometimes I use it like an oracle, but sometimes I just use it. So it's got these beautiful, beautiful images. But the special thing about this deck, and as far as I know, there's no other deck that does this. This is based on the Bhagavad Gita. It takes passages that are significant passages, let's say. So on the backs, it gives you the chapter and verse that's coming from, gives you the Sanskrit, and then it does give you an English. So here we have heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the natural qualities by which Kshatriya works. So, I mean, that one's less. Usually it's a little more, this is a spiritual deck for me. So here, like this one, is Time of Death. The Time of Death. At the time of death, whoever relinquishes his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. And it's just, for the most part, they're really powerful messages. And again, for me, this is a spiritual deck, and it's a spiritual practice using it. And as far as I know, there's no other deck that that links to the Bhagavad Gita like this. So it makes it really, really special and really important to me. So, next, we have the Lonely Dreamer Tarot. And this is the first edition. I did edge it. I have 2 copies of this one and 1 copy of the second, because it is irreplaceable and I must always have it. And for me, again, this is an emotional bond. The deck reads beautifully, and it just speaks to my soul. It just speaks to my soul. And I mean, I have a lot of decks. I have a lot. And to have a deck... Now granted, the Asherah speaks to my soul too. But I feel like they speak to different parts. This is a deck of comfort and creativity. It just... Yeah. Asherah is more kind of more all-encompassing. This is more specialized to me, if that makes sense. But it's just so special. There's no other deck that could do this. And it was love at first sight, which tends to be, I guess, the way it goes for me. If that's gonna happen, it's gonna be kind of instant for that kind of depth. Anyway, next we have Roots and Wings Oracle. I did edge it very badly, but I like it, so no snide remarks, please. It started off as a mistake, but I like it. It just, to me, it just kind of adds to that earthy feel, and I don't know. To me, this deck is very earthy, very, very grounding. Yeah, and I use this deck with everything, first of all, so it's a total workhorse. This, if I absolutely had to get rid of, well, I mean, if I had to stop using all other decks except like one for, say, client readings, I would keep this one. It just reads beautifully and perfectly with every single deck. Reads beautifully, perfectly by itself. And reading this just is so, using it, even just shuffling it, it helps me feel grounded, and it's just, I don't know. To me, this is a very elemental deck. Some decks are, some decks aren't. And this is just so earthy and so, I can't even think of the word I want. It's just, it feels nice. It feels really nice. This is a great deck to use if you're reading outside. It just kind of adds to that feeling, but it's maybe kind of where I'm going. Even reading it inside, I kind of feel outside. Yeah. It makes me feel very in tune with the world around me, as far as nature and just the plants and the rocks and the dirt. It's like a link for me. Okay, next, this is the Witches of Legend Oracle. This deck I don't use all the time, but this is a deck that when I want to really focus on goddess energy, this is the deck for me. Now I know there's a lot of decks that have goddesses. Some are solely focused on them. Some just sort of have them. Most of them I really dislike for one reason or another. Usually it's maybe there's a specific goddess, usually one that I really like, that I feel like it's just not quite right. The way it's represented or whatever, it just doesn't click for me, and that's not to knock other decks. It's just for me personally, they don't do it. This is the only deck that to me, I just feel like she nailed it. She nailed every single one. And, yeah, I mean, to me, these cards are almost like portals into that energy, into that space. And there's absolutely no other deck that does that for me. Not about this. So I don't use it all the time, but when I want that, it's there and it does it. So next one is the Ghetto Tarot. Now this has been renamed to the Bohemian something Tarot, I think. And I'm not gonna get all into it. I did in my tarot collection, I talked about the name and why it's changed, and nothing negative was meant by it. And the creator did respond to concerns about the name, and she has changed it. This is, I got this new, when it first came out, so it was before all that. So here's the thing. This deck, helps me to feel connected to people, and it helps me to feel that joy about people. That human spirit just really sings in this deck. And I don't get that in other decks. I just, obviously I haven't used every deck in the world, but I do have about 200 tarot decks. And none of them do what this deck does. And this deck fills me with hope for the future. It fills me with joy for the people. And it's a very human connection that gets created when I use this deck. Oh, look at him. I love him so much. It's a very special deck. Now that I've said that, I will say there is another deck that it's by the same creator, and it does kind of give me that same feeling. So this is the Gift of Life Tarot. I'm including both because to me they're both irreplaceable. And this deck, if for no other reason than this card, which is the most wonderful. I mean, is this focusing on him? I don't know. It's just, I mean, the joy and this is an incredible deck. I tend to go for the Ghetto Tarot first. Maybe because I got it first, but I love this one too. And again, there's that connection. Just and some of these images are so intense, and they just they're just incredible. And there is no other deck like this other than maybe the previous one, but they are different. They do have differences, and don't ask me what they are, but they're different. They really are. The emotion's just a little bit different. So, as far as I'm concerned, these are both irreplaceable, and even though they're by the same person and they're similar in style, I really feel like neither one can replace the other. Okay, so now let's see who we have left. Oh. So this is again kind of two decks by the same person, but it's kind of the same deck. So this is Tattered Wings Oracle. So this is the original, and it's incredible. And again, this is a very evocative deck. It's insanely wonderful for intuitive readings. It gives a bit more structure than the Devas of Creation. And then this one is I think it's the intuitive version. So this is the newer version. And it's all just in black and white and sepia. And it's incredible too. And these are by and large. There are some extra cards, but by and large, it's the same cards, but they're done differently. And it makes all the difference. So there are very different energies between these two decks. Sometimes I use these together. Sometimes I reach for one and not the other. It just depends. And to me, even though, you know, you might think, oh, it's just the color difference, it's really not. It's more than that. And to me, these are both irreplaceable because with the Diva deck, it's a longer process, generally speaking. With this deck, I'm just kind of in there, and it usually pings pretty quickly for me. This is a deck that if I just want to do a kind of regular reading, this is a great deck to use. That's not to say I don't use the other one for that too, but oh man, I love this. That's one that I like to take my time with a bit more. And I like that with this too, but I don't have to. Sometimes with that one, I have to. I have to really dive in and kind of commit myself. Whereas this one, I can, and it's a joy to do that, but I don't have to. You know, there's a bit more defined imagery that you can kind of jump in on. But, yeah, and to me, it just, again, just speaks to my soul. And so, there's no replacement. You know, I know there are other decks that are good for intuitive work and, you know, might have a kind of similar style, but it's not the same. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's irreplaceable. Alright, so next we have Purgatorium by Mr. Freiborg. So this deck, this is such a great deck. Now, this is a very unique deck. These are the backs. So this deck has its own system. Basically, he kind of did a merge of the stages of grief with, and I am not going to remember the name, so let's say if we can grab it quickly, and the Mantegna Tarot, which basically seeks to explain the world through 5 decades of cards. So there's a structure here. You don't have to use it. You could just use it like an oracle, open up, and he gives you a quote that's associated with it, a description of it, high polarity meaning, a low polarity meaning, depending on you know, how it comes up. But this is a deck that's fabulous for shadow work. It's also really good for working with other people. Depends on the people. But it's just very unique in how it works. You know, like, just to give you an example. So this is the Familiars card, right? So now these are broken into stages. So you would think this would be easy to find. But you would be wrong. Oh, here we go. So we have familiar. Now ye familiar spirits that are called out of the powerful legions under earth, help me this once, that France may get the field. By William Shakespeare. So, description: a desperate woman in need of help and calls out familiar spirits in order to do her bidding for her. For the high polarity meaning, we have resources, delegating activities, not having to do everything by oneself, supervising others, hiring help, asking for help. So, if I were doing just like a standard oracle reading, that's probably where I'd go. Then we have a low polarity meaning, relying too much on other people's generosities, treating others like minions, taking advantage of someone's kindness, taking people for granted, having a bossy attitude. So, I mean, it depends on how you use the deck. But for me, I tend to use it most kind of looking for that low polarity. And it just, I feel like it gets to places that other decks don't. It's a very, very direct, I mean, look at this. It's very direct and maybe a bit brutal, but I think it's very powerful, and it's also a pleasure to work with. And it's very easy. I mean, you don't need the book. It's very easy to pull out the meanings, and you do have some information to help you, but I just feel like it's very unique, and it goes places that other decks don't, and it goes places maybe a bit better, at least for me, than other decks. So definitely unique, and irreplaceable. So next we have the Magician's deck. So this deck, this deck is its own thing. So I mean, you could use this just like a regular oracle, but you would be missing out on so much more that this deck can do. So it's a little bit involved, and this, if you want to use it the way it's intended, you really do need to use the book, which I do. And if you watch my other videos, you know that's an amazing thing, because I tend not to use books, but in this case, I absolutely do. There's no quick and easy way to get into the system. That would be like a video unto itself. If you're interested, if you want like a deep dive in this deck, I'm happy to do it. Let me know in the comments. But maybe suffice to say that this is a very structured system, kind of like the tarot in that way, but it's its own system. And there's no other deck that has this system, and there's no other deck that approaches it in this way. And it's a really fabulous deck. This can be used in so many ways. It's so versatile. Now, this isn't one that I use for clients. This is only for me, and just for, you know, working on my stuff. But it's an incredible deck. And it's irreplaceable. So, next, we have the Living Altar. So now, this deck, again, they kind of have their own system. There are spells if you want to use them. There are guiding messages. There are correspondences. And then there are like spell cards, and I'll show you. But I don't use the book with this deck. I initially did. So yeah. So these are the spell cards. These are the backs. So I did read the book. And I took what worked, and I left the rest. That's a really big simplification, but essentially, that's what I do. And that's what we should all do, right? If it doesn't work, ditch it. So, I kind of use this deck in my own way. In some ways aligned to, I think, what the book presented, but then I kind of go off on my own. But this is a very unique deck. And I use it in unique ways. Don't use it for readings for clients. Sometimes I use it for readings for myself. Sometimes I just use it. And I think that it's a very special deck. And it's really well executed for the most part. The deck itself is fabulous. The guidebook, but God, I don't mean it like that. That sounds so mean. There are really good takeaways in the guidebook. There are some other things that I think are not quite right. At least for me. For you, they might be perfect. But yeah, it's just super unique, and very special, and it's irreplaceable. There is absolutely no other deck that, as far as I know, that exists that kind of has the same system, or that goes about things in the same way. If even at all. So it's irreplaceable. So next, this is the Sacred Circle Oracle. This is, again, its own system. And it's got, so this one, I have it. I don't know if it came with this book or if I bought it separately. I do use this book. So this is a book I use. It's not super complex, but there is a lot to the system. So I would definitely recommend the book in this case, if you want to get the most out of it. So there are seasons. There are tarot associations with cards. There's meanings, there's colors, there's chakras, there's so much, right? There's crystals, there's affirmations, there are meditations. So there's a lot. And again, it's too much to really get into here. If you want me to do a deep dive, I am more than happy. Let me know. But I mean, it would be a significant length of time that would be required to really cover it in any kind of detail. Although this one would probably be faster than the next one, and faster than the Magician's deck. But this is a fabulous deck. And again, this is one I just used for me. But it's a very unique system, and it's again very spiritual, and it's addressing those matters for the most part. So, last one. Now this. Sorry, I'm so dehydrated. This is the Salus Spiritus Alchemical Oracle. And they're by the same person. It's Reverend Pamela, and then she's got like 3 more names. But if you're interested, if you search on Salus Spiritus, she should come right up. It's the backs. So again, we have a completely unique system. There are there are 5 suits, but not like tarot. So, well, obviously there's 5, but we have the majors, elements, archetypes, harbingers, and stages. So like this is a major. We have stages, and so these are like the alchemical stages of self-improvement, right? Of becoming. This is such a powerful deck, and if you use it the way it's intended, it's just so special and so important. Now this comes, or maybe I bought it separately, but there's a book. And again, this is a book that I do use, and gives you meditations, it gives you a ton of information. Talks about the different suits. So basically we have the majors, which are teachers, symbols, tools. Elements are the elements that are components of our physical and spiritual worlds. So earth, air, fire, water, mercury, sulfur, and salt. We have archetypes. Harbingers, stages, and there are 2 cards per stage. So you have like 1.1, 1.2. And then there are meditations to do depending on the card. There's exercises, there's something to do with everything, right? So this is like an active planner of how to pursue change. It's a really important deck as far as I'm concerned. There is nothing like it. And it's a great work. I cannot recommend this deck enough. And it's absolutely irreplaceable. And this is one of my favorite decks ever, because of how powerful it is, and because it hits things that no other deck does. So I think that's it. This was a really hard VR because I wanted to include all the decks that I love, and I didn't. I think I stuck to it really well. But if you would like to know more about any of the unique systems or the decks, just let me know in the comments. And again, I'm absolutely happy to do it. Please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell so you are alerted when I post my next video. And I'm really excited because I have another VR in the works that's a little bit hard, but it really interesting and exciting, at least to me. So I'm really excited about it. So that will be coming soon. So until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful day, and be wonderful to yourself, because you deserve it. You deserve all the best, only the best. And that is my wish for you.